We are excited to have Kevin Fitzsimmons on today. He is a Ph.D. professor at the University of Arizona in the Department of Environmental Science. He is the past president of the World Aquaculture Society. We are going to ask him some questions in his location in Myanmar now. He is the team leader for the Myanmar Sustainable Aquaculture Program. He and the University of Arizona have actually been doing aquaponic research for ongoing now for 40 years. So we're excited to ask him some questions and just hear about his foundational work and experience in aquaculture and aquaponics.
Well, I got into it kind of in a weird way in that obviously at University of Arizona, most of our agriculture in the state is irrigated, the dry state. And so I kind of got into it of trying to show farmers how they could use the water twice. Grow fish in the water first, then use that effluent to irrigate, fertilize field crops. And when we first started doing it, it was really hard to really demonstrate it, really show the effect. So
what year was this? What year did you begin?
1981.
Okay.
And so we were trying to figure out how to better show the farmers. And so we had the idea, let's try doing some aquaponics. Matter of fact, I don't think it was even called aquaponics at the time. We were just doing fish water with hydroponics.
Okay. And that's what you said. I mean, you in the classroom or in the research, you said hydroponics with fish water.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. And it turned out really well because, we could grow the plants, we were doing some, in that case, pretty shallow water trough or even rain gutter type things. But, you could just pull up the styrofoam board and the farmer saw all the roots growing there and a nice big plant with no soil whatsoever. And you just said, hey, all the nutrients are coming from fish pee and fish shit.
Yeah.
And so the farmers really caught on to it then. And when we started doing some hardcore science with, randomized replicated plots out in the field and stuff, it was not quite as graphic, the differences, but we were showing 15, 20, 30% savings in fertilizer costs by using the aquaculture effluent. And so we've continued doing that. We still do that in the Middle East. We're doing it in Arizona, California, which is great. And but the aquaponics kind of took on a life of its own. And we started doing it in high schools. We got it going in elementary schools. We have a few commercial outfits in Arizona doing aquaponics. And then I've had several of my graduate students who have gone on to teach at other universities or have worked with some of the big commercial outfits that are doing aquaponic on a really large scale.
Great. What are some of those that have gone to large commercial scale?
Yeah, so Superior
Yes.
Up in Wisconsin.
Right.
One of my PhD students, Bruno Sarosi, went up there and helped get that operation going. He and his wife recently returned to Brazil to start a family and all that kind of stuff, but he's going to continue doing commercial operations down there in Brazil. And then we've got a few other smaller operations in Arizona that students have worked on. And then the biggest tilapia farm in Arizona, they take all their effluent and irrigate field crops with it. And so they're doing like 1,000 acres of alfalfa and cotton. And
I read they're doing barley as well.
Yep. They
Yeah,
did barley
great.
for.
And that was
For a
from
time.
your initiative from the university? You
It was one
approached
of
the
my
farm.
students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Can you share more about that? That's fascinating, just how they're using the
Yeah.
tilapia farm. And have you,
Well,
another question
exactly.
would be, have you seen that happen globally? I know there's, global aquaculture farms and fish farms, and have you seen it replicated?
Certainly, yeah. So one of the aspects is this integration of aquaculture and more traditional agriculture. And as I'm sure you know, people in Asia have been doing it for about 2,000
Right,
years, growing
right.
fish and rice. Everybody's seen pictures of somebody dipping their buckets into a pond and then going over to, tip the buckets out and walk down the 2 rows and irrigate their vegetables. Well, almost always those are fish ponds,
Okay,
and
interesting.
they're using that effluent water. So it's not like we've really invented anything. Where I have kind of focused is, okay, look, the Asians developed this, but in the US, Europe, we're not going to walk by with 2 5-gallon buckets, watering our vegetables. So we need to come up with an agro-industrial version of that, whether it's through drip irrigation, whether it's through center pivots, whether it's through laser leveled flood irrigation. But we want to use the concept because it is so sustainable. And then the same in Asia, kind of vice versa. They're getting away from, the family farm and going into more industrial agriculture all over Asia, including China. When I first time I went to China, I was told there are no farms in China. Everybody gardens, and now that's changing. That we do have more industrial style farms in Asia as labor rates go up, et cetera, to be more efficient. So we're trying to help them not forget what they did and take advantage of these integrated farming systems. And then kind of the other avenue, which I'm sure all your aquaponics viewers know, is that aquaponics is so important when we start talking about urban agriculture, peri-urban agriculture, because we can grow so much food sustainably on a really small footprint and do it close into urban centers, reduce food kilometers, et cetera. And so I think that's equally important. But what people don't realize that in China, India, Southeast Asia, they developed these aquaculture, agriculture, agrosystems, agroecosystems, really, that were sustainable, produce a lot of high quality food, and most of the food was fish, whole grains, vegetables, fruits, which every dietitian, nutrition expert says we should be eating more of. And that's one of the reasons the population densities have been so high in this part of the world, because they developed this agroecosystem integrating aquaculture and agriculture that could support huge populations without lots of inorganic fertilizers. They're labor intensive, no doubt, but some of these fields have been farmed for 1,000, 1,500 years, and year after year after year. So it obviously is a system that we should be using around the world to produce more food more sustainably. And if we can get the West to work it into their agroecosystem and the East to remember this as they go into more agroecosystems, industrialized version, then I think we're going to be in a better place.
What do you think it's going to take to get the West involved and integrate it into their agriculture, kind of like Asia?
Yeah, I think part of it is that they have to see that the economics will work, obviously. As seafood prices continue to rise, because it all has to come from aquaculture, we're not getting anything more out of the ocean. Seafood prices will rise. I think organic produce, more sustainably farmed produce will continue to gather a better premium. And we have more and more states in the US who have identified land application through irrigation of aquaculture effluent as a best management practice. And so as states write their fertilizer BMPs, if they incorporate aquaculture effluent onto field crops as a good aquaculture or good agriculture practice, good aquaculture practice as well, obviously, that's going to drive some additional interest. And again, we just have a population that is looking for more sustainably produced food, whether it's organic or not certified organic, but people still want it to be sustainable.
The Mediterranean diet, that's a big fad now, and that's the aquaponic diet. So it's
exactly
really right.
You got it.
Right.
Yeah, and as we also, especially in the West, have and a lot of Eastern Asia too, have rapidly increasing percentages of elderly in the population, the graying population. These people are known to consume more seafood, more vegetables, fewer carbohydrates, so more healthy eating style that fits right in with aquaponics and aquaculture integrated with field agriculture.
Is there something that still needs to be just either pushed harder or developed, or what's lacking in the research world for aquaponics and aquaculture? Sure.
Well, aquaponics, there are two things that I think are somewhat overlapping. And first is that in my experience, when we have aquaponics that get to be much more than 1 acre, half a hectare in size, we seem to hit a bump in the road, we'll call it. And that is that most of the smaller scale operations can be run by 1 or 2 people, a family, a co-op, a bunch of graduate students, whatever, but by people who understand the whole system. They understand the interrelationship between the plants, the water, the microbes, the fish, and equally, maybe more important when you start getting fairly large scale, is control of insects. Then kind of the related issue is when you go much past this half a hectare operation, so often people bring in wage labor.
Okay.
They bring in somebody to do the grunt work, carry around things, Well, in country after country where we've seen this happen, they run into a problem. And that is that with most wage labor, it gets to be 5 o'clock, time to leave. They punch out and go. But as everybody in aquaponics knows, your pumps, your blowers never break down between 8 and 5.
We all say that. I mean, we all say that, and it happened to us. Like, it was a lockdown here in a Friday morning, like the first day of lockdown, and a pump broke. And it's just like, of all days, it could have been 8 hours before, but it wasn't.
That's right. Yeah, that's what it's Christmas Eve or midnight.
Why whatever. Is that? We all say that, but it's true.
It is true. But the wage labor guys, that they'll knock off and say, "Oh well, that pump was making noise. I'll work on it, Monday morning when I come in." Or I saw a few thrips out there. I saw some white flies. I'll report it tomorrow morning. When you have the dedicated people who understand the system, they stay after 5 o'clock, or they get on the phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, we got to bring in beneficial insects, or we got to go spray with pepper spray, or we're going to go, get our safer soap out, whatever. And there are obviously lots of interventions. Go out and squish them with your fingers, whatever it is that needs to be done. And so we need to have this kind of trained staff, junior technical people that could come in. And where I see this happening is more and more, we have high schools, junior colleges that are doing aquaponics in the classroom.
Right.
And my hope is that that cadre of educated, but not Ph.D. level people are going to be that middle management that can be there between the really highly skilled people and the wage labor that pull it all together. So those two things go together, and obviously scaling up past half a hectare or 1, 2, 3, 10 hectares, you've got to have that middle management there that are going to help you handle the insect infestations. Because if you have to, make that decision of, okay, do we just throw everything away or sell it really cheap because it's got chewed up leaves or whatever, or do we come in and rescue it and spray everything? Well, then you've got to go through the whole process of cleaning and, lose your organic certification, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the two things that I see are really critical for aquaponics. Aquaculture on a larger scale, to some extent, we have this same labor issue of kind of middle management, being an issue virtually everywhere, whether you're talking Asia or US and Western Europe. Getting those people that you can hire at a reasonable wage, but expect to have a higher level of experience is taking some time. It's happening, and some of the people who were wage labor who have 5, 6, 7 years of experience, they can go off and start their own operations or go work for somebody else. So you're getting some experience that way. But those are two really critical things. Aquaculture on a larger scale, again, we're still improving nutrition. Feed quality continues to improve year by year. We're working out better genetics and reproductive biology for existing species and new species that are coming in to play. Transferring more technology from Asia to the West. In China, where they have these gigantic scallop hatcheries or sea cucumber hatcheries, right. And the West hardly farms some of these things. And in Asia, whether you're Korea, Japan, China, they do on massive, massive scales. And so getting the West to appreciate some of these other species and transfer some of the technology is a key aspect to further expanding aquaculture. So I'm team leader on Myanmar Sustainable Aquaculture Project, and this is a 25 million euro 5-year project pushing sustainable aquaculture across the country. Great. So we're working inland with tilapia, carp, pangasius, and then coastal, we're working with artemia, giant tiger prawns, macrobrachium, crabs, scilla crabs, a little bit with Asian sea bass. And then we're especially supporting what we call the trap and hold, more traditional system here, which is enclosing an area of mangrove ecosystem. Okay. And then farming the shrimp, crabs, fish, in that enclosure. So it's kind of somewhat of a managed ecosystem, more of a pasture, really. But we still need to provide juveniles, so crablets, post-larvae shrimp, fingerling fish into these systems, and usually some nursery, whether we do it in hoppas or cages, nets, small enclosures in the area. These types of interventions to be more productive. And then at the other end of the cold chain, value chain, show the farmers how to harvest more sustainably, how to improve the post-harvest handling, and set up marketing channels so they can shorten the chain and sell directly to restaurants, grocery stores, hotels, rather than going through the traditional fishmonger who then goes to the auction, okay, and then goes to the wet market. And, we're trying to be more efficient than that.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you have students on site as well?
We have a few Burmese students, yeah.
Okay.
But it's mostly the project is actually implemented by GIZ, the German aid agency. The funding comes both from Germany and the rest of the EU. And then we're partnered here with Yangon University, Pathine University. So some of our students are coming from there. And then a lot of private sector. We were working closely with the Department of Fisheries until 3 weeks ago. So that part is a little bit up in the air as to how we proceed in that regard. But the people here have been wonderful. I had a 3-year USAID project, quite similar, but on a much smaller scale before this project began. Okay. And so I've been here almost full time for 4 years.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Yeah. But I get back to the U.S. to do my work at Arizona, and then a lot in the evenings on Skype and Zoom. And
I was thinking, what are some exciting projects like students are involved in at the university? Whether it's with technology or agriculture, or aquaponics, anything, what's just exciting to you to see kind of the next generation step forward?
So here in Yangon, in Myanmar, we've got students working on crab nutrition, because right now they're using mostly forage fish to feed the crabs. And we'd like to get them onto, pelleted diets like we do with shrimp. We've got some working on reproductive biology, trying to improve the hatchery methodology for the crabs. We've got a couple who are working with a couple different phytoplankton strains to use in the hatchery, because we've got fish, shrimp, crab hatcheries going. So obviously larval nutrition is important with different algae. Back in Arizona, I've got grad students who are doing some aquaponics work and looking at some different media, comparing expanded clay and floating beds. I'm on a committee for a student from Australia who's looking at aquaponics and field agriculture, and looking at a model that might help people decide which is a better method for any particular farm to look at field application versus a more high-tech aquaponic type system, which is real interesting that he's doing. And then those are some key things.
So the future is bright. I just think
future is very bright.
I just think, we hear a lot of, and I know COVID-19 has, brought more awareness, but I just think as we talk to people like you that have been around so long in this industry, we just see that, technology and, innovation can actually be exponential and just impact in providing, positive outcomes. And so I think just hearing those stories, and that's just Myanmar and Australia and Arizona. And so it's encouraging to hear that, just makes me think, things can move forward in an impactful, sustainable, innovative way that's, better for all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, with the internet and how quickly good science now gets published and made available on the web, whether it's compound interest or exponential, sure, whichever way you want to look at it.
Right.
I think that's happening. I mean, when I serve on committees for students from Mexico or Brazil or Myanmar, and I see the level at which the students are working now, I'm just amazed that they are using techniques at a really high level that, 5-10 years ago, they were just showing up at Research One universities.
Right.
And now we've got undergrad students in Myanmar using PCR on their senior theses.
Yes.
Just a few years ago, that was, big time genetics labs were the only people who knew how to do that.
Wow.
And so it's really just amazing how the technology is spread and how quickly students are picking up these skill sets and applying it to aquaculture, aquaponics. So I think it's wonderful how things are progressing globally.
Yes.
I mean, it's a really good sign.
What kind of advice would you give someone starting out in research or as a student? Like, I mean, you have this experience. Yeah. What would you just share with someone that's just getting into all of this in the research and kind of in the, educational institutions?
Sure. Well, one thing I would say is as soon as you can, even if it's just volunteering, get into somebody's research lab or a commercial farm and get that hands-on experience. And again, starting out, if it's just volunteering, independent study, intern, whatever, go ahead and start there. And then by the time you're a grad student, you can usually get paid to do that. And because industry does not want just book learning. They want people who know how to do these, know how to use the different tools, whether it's a microscope, a DO meter, automatic feeding machine, pH meter, whatever. How to load a feed tray, on and on and on. So that would be my first bit of advice. Second is try to read some of the industry newsletters, magazines, websites, so you can get a better feel for where industry is going. What are the new technologies coming in, things like that. You may pick up some of that in the lab, but you may pick up even more from industry news outlets. And there's lots of websites, newsletters, webinars, whatever. All very valuable.
It's great advice. So how can we find more about your work and University of Arizona and what you've been involved in?
Yeah, so at University of Arizona, we have an aquaculture website. We have for Myanmar a website and Facebook page, which is more important here. And then we participate in webinars. We present at professional meetings, World Aquaculture Society, Asia Pacific Aquaculture Society, Asian Fisheries Society, fish nutrition meetings, which will be in Korea later this year. So we try to bring students to those. It's a great experience for students to present at those kinds of meetings. Over the last year, participated in lots of different online webinars, Zoom meetings, those types of things, trying to keep things fresh and communicate.
Well, thanks so much for your time. Like, really, we're thrilled to have you. And I think just your experience and your foundational steps in all of this is encouraging to me. And I think it will be encouraging to those that watch this. And I just think, yeah, we're just appreciative of you and your work. And you've been involved in massive things. And so we appreciate that. And we look forward to just seeing the fruits of what you've invested in. And yeah, so we look forward to that.
Thank you.